All righty. Looks like we're getting started up, ready to go live out there on Facebook land. Welcome to the December 9th edition of Coach's Corner. We have myself, Chip Gallant, I have Jennifer Fott, Mark Camiso. We're all certified Petra coaches in the scaling up methodology, and we're glad to have you here today. What we talked about beforehand and when we got together to talk about topics was, it's that point in time where it's time to plan for 2021. And this certainly has been an interesting year on many fronts. And I know a lot of you out there are ready. Yes. Like, please get here.
Mark's ready.
Mark's ready. We're all ready to just kind of kiss this year goodbye and have a fresh slate. So we want to talk a little bit today about what's that look like? What does planning for 2021 look like from a coach's perspective? And we are all certainly working with a lot of different companies. And first thing I want to do is maybe we can go around and kind of talk about what we call the annual reset in the coaching world, and we're all doing that right now with clients. So I want to go around and just kind of let's talk about that and explain what that process looks like to those who are joining us today. Jennifer?
I was like, who are you going to call on? Okay. Right?
You're me.
Yes. Annual resets are about looking at the plan that you've built and pushing everything out a year. And it's about reflecting on your previous year's performance. And I think a lot of times people forget to do that part, looking back on how the year went, which, we know we know there's a lot of lessons learned from 2020. And then learning from past mistakes and how we can change and shift moving forward, and then brainstorming and setting a direction for the next year. I think, to start by saying everybody wants 2021. Mark held the poster up, 2021 with fireworks. I think that's what those were. Yeah.
Attempting.
2021 is only going to be a good year if we make it a good year. And we're not just going to magically wake up on go to bed on December 31st and wake up on January 1st and everything's magically changed. We can't wait for this year to be over, but, we can't be like everybody else when it comes to our planning and just hope that 2021 is going to be different. We've got to take action now, which is why we're working with all of our members to create their plans and hit reset. Mark?
And I think that's the biggest thing. And you look at what we've done over, and each of us have a different experiences with this year. Those who chose to plan and take the bull by the horns in the second and third quarter of this year, most of them didn't have bad years because they planned and adjusted and pivoted. So I think it's a really, really important point to carry forward moving into the next year as well. Mark, what are some of your thoughts on the reset?
Yeah, while I had my fireworks and my sign, right, and all ready, at the same time, as we come in, and I'll explain the reset from my perspective, certainly. But 2020's been a year. It's been challenging on many fronts. But I also feel, and I know we've talked about this in here before, and I know the three of us have, and other times is, we're all going to look back on this year, and we're going to remember this time as a time when things were out of our control more, and I think it's going to be a defining time for a lot of people and a lot of businesses. What did we do, right, with what we had, with what we could do? Chip, you were just mentioning that those people that did plan going into 2020 and were working from their plans had something to work from. And, you can't say they all succeeded. I mean, there's certainly businesses in the travel industry and the bars and restaurants we know are certainly having a really tough time, but, they had a less tough time if they planned. And, as we look back at 2020, as I'm doing these resets and we're looking back, I'm, as we said oftentimes is, you're doing one of two things as we move along in our businesses. You're either succeeding at it or you're learning. 2020 had a lot of learning about what we could do, about possibilities, about resilience. So as I go into these resets with my members, it's some of, doing a little bit of that look back, as you were saying, Jennifer, of what were we able to do against a plan that, again, a year ago when we were all doing this with our members, I don't know about you, but we went through and did the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. nobody had pandemic on the threat list, at least in my group. So this was not a plan.
If somebody
for
claims they did, they're lying.
yeah. But now this year, everybody's got it on, right? It's like a pandemic. It's like, well, yeah, okay, that's going to be for a while. There's the scars. But, as we go through these resets, and to Jennifer's point, we look back first. We learn from what happened and what we did and what we could do. And then we look at how do we carry that forward. I'm also doing in mine, and I know Jennifer and I are big on this, but big Brene Brown fans, right? And she talks about, being courageous as leaders and how do we do that? And one of the things I think is important as I do resets with my members, is being real too about saying, yeah, you know what, this was tough. Not just having that hard exterior of, oh, we're going to make it. We're going to, double down 2021. It's like, hey, you know what, this was challenging. And it was hard for me as a leader. It was hard for us as an organization. We have to acknowledge that and then say, what can we do? And that's what really resets are about, is learning from what we've done in the past, celebrating the wins, and then saying, great, now's an opportunity to go and take a step forward. And what are we going to do that? And, stepping into 2021 with, open eyes and open hearts.
Yeah. I think, as we look at the just kind of the makeup of what a reset does, we're going in and looking at things like annual initiatives. What are those big things that as an organization, those 6 to 10 things you may want to get done over the course of the next year? What are your targets? What are the financial KPI targets and otherwise that may tie into your business? Where do you want to be in the end of 2021? Looking out 3 to 5 years from there as a way to give you some, a bit of some waypoints to be looking for moving into the future, and even in getting closer, setting those targets for that first quarter as part of that. And then looking at things like what we call thrusting capabilities, which are 3 to 5 years out, the big things that need to be, you begin to need to be moving toward or onboarding or evolving in your business as it relates to that. Mark talked about the SWOT analysis. That's another key critical thing. And we may do a few other things in there, but I think the biggest thing, Mark, kind of piggybacking on what you said, is most oftentimes during a reset, the thing that I deal with the most is them using logic to determine what the next year is versus sitting back and just answering the question, what do you want? It's the hardest thing, the hardest question that we have to deal with, and I'm sure you guys experience most of this, is what do you really want next year? Because I guarantee you, when you define what you want, you can go build a plan to get that. Now, you may not be able to afford that plan, if it's a little too aggressive or too unrealistic. But I often find that's the biggest obstacle is don't start much like we do with a budget, the expense line out and then engineer yourself into another. Define what it is you want.
Right. Another way to think about that, Chip, is, and we say this all the time, not where do you think you will be, where do you want to be? Mm-hmm. And, how do we plan for that when there's like an uncertain future? We don't know what 2021 looks like. And so that's what I'm hearing from the members that I work with is, well, how am I supposed to set a plan when I don't know what 2021 looks like? And I'm like, newsflash, you didn't know what 2020 was going to look like and you still made a plan. Every year is uncertain. And yet we still sit down and create these plans and set goals and outcomes for ourselves and give our teams something to go hope for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, going back, yeah, I would say, Chip, going back to what you were saying there too, in these annual resets, as we do them with our members, and something for people to think about is, first looking farther out, right? Saying, where do we want to go into the future, and not a linear growth path, right? Not just, we'll do 20% better this year and then 20% better the next year. I'm not saying that's wrong to say you want to grow 20%. There's a lot of companies that say, wow, but if you don't determine farther out, a big, hairy, audacious goal, something that's big out there where you want to be going, that's totally different, that you're going to have to do different things to achieve, not just the same stuff, right? How do you do different things to go into new markets, to, give a different, product line a whirl and see how that adds to, what your customers are saying is good or bad or whatever. Without that kind of forward thinking, and then bringing it back to, okay, now what are we going to do in 2021 to move us closer to that or do a piece of that? I think ties into, the old Wayne Gretzky, saying of, I was successful because, I passed the puck to where the player was going to be, not where they were. And that's really, as leaders, we have to look and say, okay, we've got our players, our team, our organization. Where do we feel it's going to be? And how do I kind of communicate that, yeah, we're all going to be skating in this direction, going over here, and we're going to get to a place. And as a leader, I'm passing that puck to that place and setting it up. As we do these resets, it's really important. If you're just like, hey, okay, everybody's just 1 inch closer, that's not going to get us, maybe where we need to go or would like to go.
Yep.
Yeah, I think reevaluating your strategy in general, this is a great time to do that. Strategy doesn't have to be complex, but it is hard. And it's hard because it forces you to make some decisions and specific choices about the future of your business. So I think it's important to start off your annual reset or your annual planning with your team, really thinking about how are we attacking the market? What are our distribution channels? Is there, like you said, Mark, is there a new product we want to launch? And dreaming a little bit bigger helps lift the fog of 2020 and the uncertainty of 2021. Again, I think it offers hope when we create these new plans for not only the executive team, but the teams underneath as well.
And I think the two key pieces that help us address those things are, number one, the weaknesses that we come up with. When we do a reset and we dive into the weaknesses of the business, there is so much hope, because more often than not, people think those weaknesses, they craft them as though they're the opportunities, but they're really inside, right? So the strengths are internal and weaknesses are internal, opportunities, threats are external. And so when you look at that and you say, hey, we have a chance to go eliminate these weaknesses this year, it's a huge undertaking and a way to position your company better. And then also, and I think 2021 is going to be the year of opportunities and opportunity and instances to go seize opportunities, because it just feels like the community, the market, whatever you're in, whatever market you're in, whatever sector, whatever part of the world you're in, there are people who are dying to get back to normal, whatever that is. And so there will be opportunities.
Yeah, and I think you bring up an interesting point. We in these coaches' corners, it's always fun. The three of us just get a chat away, and others are listening to us. But we had to go off on tangents all over the place. And one that that you brought up here, Chip, I think is good to communicate out to the world and to leaders, is that when you think about those weaknesses, understand that your team, right, and our organizations, that is the way the human brain works. And what I mean is, we think negative first. Hate to tell everybody out there that, but that's the truth. And the truth is that our brain will go there. And when I do this SWOT analysis, I start with weaknesses, because the human brain will think negative first. So I throw it out there. And if we get that out of the way, then we can go to some of those strengths and so those opportunities or trends or whatever we do, and people open up. The reason I bring this up, Chip, is, as you said, going to those weaknesses and what can we mitigate, right? What can we, maybe do in this next year to help eliminate those? It's also one of those things where when teams see that we're willing to work on our weaknesses, they get excited about it, right? It's not just all the, happy-go-lucky, unicorns dancing in the field of strengths and opportunities, right? Because everybody can think that. But, we're actually willing to say, this is a challenge for us, and here's an approach to eliminating that or taking it away or doing less of whatever that weakness is. And that gets people excited too. And leaders often, I found, don't want to do that. They shy away. They're like, let's not talk about the weaknesses as much because, we're bringing up the negative. It's like, no, it's an opportunity, and your team knows it's there. Everybody knows it's there. It's that purple elephant, right? And if you don't address that as a leader and bring it up, and again, from my perspective, you bring it up first, you get it out of the way first, and then you're open to all these other things. So just that's part of, as I do reset, some of the things I do encourage that positive thinking and ways of approaching the next period of time, whether it's the year or the quarter or whatever you're looking at.
Well, I think that gets simpler over time as we go through and we're coaching companies and we help them identify those things they choose to go execute on. And as that team collectively builds that muscle memory of execution and delivery on those things, then it gets easier over time when we do work on the weakness list. So like, oh yeah, let's go knock those 3 things off this year. And maybe that ends up being part of your annual initiatives for the year is weakness elimination, or you turn around to the positive, the outcome of that, which would then be a positive in terms of the organization. But it has to cascade, it has to build up over time. And they will see that the perspective of those weaknesses will change. I want to shift gears a little bit, but not too off topic. And what do you guys like? What's the number one big topic you're hearing? And you may have kind of hit on it some already, but if so, bring up something else. But what are you hearing from your members in terms of the stuff that's being discussed in the resets? Jennifer?
I knew you were going to call on me.
Ladies first.
Because he can't shut me up, Jennifer, so that's why.
Ladies first all the time. I guess I should be prepared, right? I think I've already really talked about it. It's this uncertainty, this fog that's still sort of hanging over teams, where if we don't prep our teams as they come into this new year of this new goal setting, or what we call annual reset at Petra, if we don't attack that before they even walk in the room and get the mindset in the right place, they have a really hard time dreaming and talking about what the future might look like. And so I've been doing that by putting a little video together and an email together to say, hey, make sure you've taken some time to sit quietly, grab a cup of coffee, print out last year's plan, and have your thoughts ready to come to the planning day or to the annual reset day so that we can move through this quickly. Because I think a lot of times people just show up with a hot cup of coffee in their hand and they're like, what are we doing today? And it takes a long time for us to get into the outcomes we want to see, because they aren't coming in prepared and having meditated on it really ahead of time. I think the other thing, Mark, you bring up a really good point about the weaknesses. What we're doing with those is we're removing the friction and the frustration that bubbles under the surface and continues to kind of pull the threads of your culture, just starts unraveling it. And if we can turn those into annual initiatives, and even from a positive perspective, like Chip said, turn those into company priorities, that is what's going to allow us to excel and grow in 2021. So we can't be scared to kind of have those hard conversations about how we plan, what the mindset is, and smoothing out the friction in the organization.
What's one big thing you're hearing, Mark?
Well, I want to piggyback on what Jennifer said there for a moment, which is, it's that, I totally agree with you, and kind of where I was going with that kind of human brain thinking negatively, right, is if we don't, as leaders, right, in our organizations, if we don't shine a light on these things, they will just percolate under the surface, and everybody knows it. It's sitting there, and it's toxic, right? And that's putting a light on it doesn't always mean you're going to create a priority this next year to solve it. But just by saying, yes, we as an organization realize that this is a challenge, a weakness, something we aren't accomplishing to the level we want yet, or whatever it may be. Just by saying that out loud and putting it up helps make it less scary, right? It's when it's underneath the surface, when it's hidden, is when people make stuff up, right? We had an old saying in the group I was part of. It's like, okay, if you don't fill the chalkboard for your team, they're going to fill it with their own stuff. And it's never the stuff that you want them to fill it with. It's always bigger, badder, worse. And so by saying, hey, this is the reality, here's what it is, maybe there's something we can do. Maybe there isn't. Maybe just the fact that we realize and put it up there is enough for right now to not have it be this, as you were saying, Jennifer, this kind of prickly thing underneath the surface there that no one's talking about. It's the scary thing. Not really. It's a reality. Every business has weaknesses. They exist. It's a matter of how you handle them. the area that going back, Chip, to what you were saying, for me, what I'm seeing a lot of is the thing that's coming up again and again is people issues. You talk about the 4 disciplines in scaling up, and the people one is the one that's coming up a lot for me in the businesses. And part of it is because there have been so many unknowns in 2020, right? A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of businesses have not had the wherewithal to be able to keep everybody. Other businesses, are struggling to find good people, right? Which is kind of crazy. You think about, there's a lot of people that are out of work, and so, but finding those people and figuring out how to get them in when we don't have a physical place, and you're doing the Zoom thing and all that. I'm just seeing a lot of people issue type of challenges come up. Not one in particular, right? It's not one thing, but it's in that area that this year, more than in the past, I'm seeing a lot of questions and time spent on that as we look forward, right? What are we going to do with our teams in 2021? Are we, right sizing? Are we downsizing? Are we, finding more? Are we finding them in geographically different locations? How are we going to do that? How are we going to support that? Those types of things that are coming up a lot as I'm doing these resets with my members.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I know in the ones I've done so far, revisiting the core values, which is something we typically don't do in a reset, has come up in every one. And I really love when we had Darius a little while back on one of our workshops, and he did some stuff with some training for us here at Petra on his book, The Core Value Equation. What I loved, and I've pulled this message forward, is when your core values are right, they solve everything. They solve everything in the business. And I even had to have a session with an executive team we did a 360 core value review with everybody, where each person rated each other, including themselves. And we had a discussion around that because of some things that were going on in the business. And we needed to do that as part of the reset, because there were some blind spots in the business and in the leadership with respect to the core values, and we needed to uncover some new ways to look at them. And it ended up being an amazing conversation, and with a lot of outcomes from that. So
yeah, that's interesting you bring that up, Chip, because the team I was with yesterday, we actually did spend quite a bit of time on those foundational items as well. Not so much core values, but with them, it was their purpose and BHAG, and how it aligns with their go-to-market strategy, and how their team is reacting to it and driving behavior. The trickle down nature of that, their brand promise, all just attacking it again, stress testing it, making sure that that feels right, so that January 1, we can start using those things to help bolster the culture and potentially start some of the culture issues.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think as I look at it, the way I like to say it, Chip, is that and I love Darius's presentation. I thought it was really great. It's always fun to get with luminaries in different fields, and he certainly is in that area around the core values. And as I like to say, core values make things easier. They don't make them easy, right? It's not always that we can solve everything and make it simple, but it makes it easier when you're coming from a core values perspective, because that is the DNA of the organization. And another friend of mine in the past said this, and I believe it's true as well, is that every organization has core values. It's just a matter of whether you know what they are and you're using them to your advantage. They can be very advantageous in making things easier. Again, not easy, but easier in how we do those. And I think, I loved what you were saying, Jennifer, which is kind of stress testing them a little bit each year, right? Looking at them, to your point, Chip, maybe in the situation you were talking about is, are our core values truly what we are, or did we create them with a little bit of aspiration in there? Because if you have core values that are aspirational, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to want to be something, but to strive for that. But core values, you got to know, if you say you are something and you're not, then that comes out, right? And that can be where the rub is.
Quickly.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, quickly, exactly. I had an old member a long time ago, but just timely was one of their core values, and And when we really dug under it, the CEO was never on time. We all know that's one of our core value, or one of our keys to success is, be on time every time. But it was like, this timely one, that's what we'd like to be, but the leadership wasn't, doing that. We had to massage that one a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So I think another thing that's equally is important with what you're doing in resetting for your company is what are you doing to reset yourself? So I'll go to you, Mark, and start with you this time. Take me through your process of resetting 2021 for you personally.
Well, for me personally, one of the things that we do believe in both at Petra, and I know a lot of us do this, is we do our own one-page personal plan, right? What is it that I want to do as a professional, as a husband, as a brother, as a friend? What are those things that matter to me? And taking a similar approach to, what we do with the members in the businesses, which is looking out farther, right? Taking that farther, looking, and as we come up to the end of the year, it's like, okay, I was looking out 10 years. Now it's going to be one more year than 10 years than it was last year. Where is it that, I'm looking to go, and how did I do this last year? So it's a very similar process. It's just using the one-page personal plan to do it and looking in areas that matter to me, right? They're not as much business. They're far more personal of, health and family and, the things that matter to us. My wife and I actually get together and do this as well for our family, right? Where do we want our family to be going? What matters to us is, philanthropy something that's important. If so, what is it that we're going to do in this next year to do that? Much like we were talking about, 2020 didn't give us an opportunity to get out and do some of the things in the community and things that we've done in the past. We did them in a little different ways, but as we see the possibility and hopefully the probability that we'll be able to get out a little bit more in 2021, how can we do that and maybe double up this next year? So it's those types of things on a personal plan of, looking again, what have we done? What would we like to be doing going forward on a longer term basis for me, and then also for my family, and then creating some, fun things to look forward to and pushing ourselves, and so it's very similar. The thing I've often said is, we do all this planning, we spend all this time in our businesses doing it, and it works pretty well when we do make a plan in business and we have something to aim at and do, and, we can bring it down. It's like, why aren't we doing similar things in our personal lives, right? And a lot of times people are like, oh, we just let it happen. It's like, okay. So we just, we applied a little bit of the process and made it personal and have fun with it.
Jennifer, what's your process?
Yeah, I do the same thing. We use the one-page personal plan within Petra with our members, and we call it eat your own dog food, right? So most of us coaches and accountability coaches, we also do our own one-page personal plan. And for me, that one is like Mark said, far more personal. What do I want to give to charity? Is there some sort of aspiration that I want as a wife, as a member of a family, as a friend, et cetera? How do I want my relationships to look like? And I think this year, something that I've been challenging my members with at the end of our annual reset is to also look at their professional growth as well. So when they've built their plan, they have the goals for the business, and I know how that affects my department or my position or my function within the organization. Now, what do I need to do to up my game at a professional level and increase my capabilities or my competencies? Where am I seeing gaps in that? Because as the business grows and gets more complex, we have this image that we could probably share over time. We have to grow with the business because it's getting more complex, or we're going to get left behind. And we call that minding the gap. So, I think it's reflecting back on how have I been in my own professional career? What lessons have I learned? Did I grow emotionally? What did I enjoy most about business this past year? What was the biggest time waster for me last year? And how can I change that? I've been thinking about the top 3 areas that I need to grow as a leader from a knowledge perspective, a competencies perspective, and find those gaps. Then I can go build quarterly priorities around learning, reading, attending seminars, webinars, being coached personally by another coach. And and being able to keep up. As coaches, we have to always be doing that.
Yeah. I do all the same stuff. And there one thing I do that neither of you mentioned is I use the Wheel of Life exercise that we do that talks about the things that it's sectioned off into friends, faith, family, fun, fitness, and finances. And I can't believe I got them all right. But I sit down every New Year's Eve with my family and we all do wheels together and we go through that exercise and we build a family plan based on that. And I can't tell you, especially with my kids, it's absolutely one of the best conversations I have with them all year because I get to see what they see about their life and what they may want to go do with it over the course of the next year. And then I take those things from them that I can affect either directly or indirectly, and I put them in my one-page personal plan. So I know when I first did this 3 years ago with my family, my youngest, said, "Hey, Dad, can we go take a trip, just you and me this year?" I'm like, "Abso-freaking-lutely." And it's one of the best things that we had done as a father and son. And didn't, because of things this year, didn't get a chance to do it quite like we wanted to. So that'll be a big thing that we'll just carry forward and it'll be in my plan for next year. It's another critical thing, is just looking at everything. And it's really the one-page personal plan, and when you're resetting for the next year is who do you want to be when that ball drops on December the 31st of 2021? What is that version of you? There's the home version, there's the business version, there's other versions of those things that you can go affect and do something about. And there's nothing like having a plan to go do that.
And I really like, one of the things that Andy Bailey, founder of Petra, does in his Boundless Self, workshop that's related to this that I really like. It's just something I want to throw out for everybody is he says, think about, farther out, somewhere down the road, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, wherever you want to be. But when you think about those areas, you think of the wheel that you talked about, Chip, it's like, think about the people in your life. But he does this, and I really loved it. I've done it as well from hearing it, is think about that time. How old will you be?
Mm-hmm.
How old will the people in your life be? And now envision that. And he has you close your eyes. And I just love it when you think about, my daughter who's 21 now, right? If I go out 20 years, will be 41. Oh, what is she going to be doing? Will she have a family? And, I have found that, this may sound very business-like of the approach, but you want to talk about really personal when you start to think about those things that really matter in your life and the people and the environments that you want to be in and surrounded by, and then you visualize that. I mean, go back to the head and heart thing. I get emotional in those things.
Yeah.
It's both fun to think about, and then it's like, oh my gosh. And then, how do I want to be? How do I want to be showing up in my daughter's life? And it's like, wow, it gives me kind of goosebumps and energized to think about what I could do this year to get a little bit closer to that.
What's your target date, Mark, in your one-page plan?
Yep. The target date, mine goes out 20 years. So
20
that's
years?
the long term is, yeah. So I just did mine for the next go round. And so it's 2041.
How about you, Jennifer?
Mine goes out 25. Yeah.
To 2025?
25 years. Yeah.
Oh, 25? Yeah, mine is July 24, 2037. That's my 65th birthday. So, and it's not unsimilar. If you look up, the concept around all that came from Vivid Vision and Painted Picture. It's all about painting the picture for yourself of how you envision your life at that future point in time, and then working backwards. The annual reset is about, okay, how am I going to get 1% closer to that this next year, or 10% closer? Maybe I even knock something off the list this year.
And the reason that works is because we have an emotional connection with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates that story, that vision in your mind that, man, I really want to go do this, because you are connected to it. So if you can also get into the why, which is another thing that Andy does so well at Boundless Self, is that he forces you to dig into the reason behind that being important to you.
Yep.
you can connect those dots, it makes it so much more real and impactful, and it encourages you to go actually do the work. I think that's the big aha for me is what is the emotional connection behind it? And then thinking about outcomes. A lot of people will say, well, I want to lose weight. Well, why do you want to lose weight? Or why is this important to you? And what's the specifics behind that?
Mm-hmm.
How much weight, or is it not just weight? Is it something else that's driving that? Outcomes, I think, are the key. We talk about those till we're blue in the face at Petra, don't we? Always.
Well, I read this book. This is one of my absolute favorite books. I read it about this time every year because it's a great primer going into your reset and kind of just resetting yourself to think about the next year. And I loved in there one of the passages that Joshua talks about in the story about how, without a plan, we're climbing this ladder, constantly climbing this ladder. It could be your career ladder, corporate ladder, whatever that ladder is. But more often than not, without a plan, when we get to the top of that ladder, we're standing on the wrong building. We haven't chosen what it is or who it is we want to become. We're just going through the motions. We're taking a tactical approach to our life. And that's the thing I love about the one-page personal plan and how it even dovetails into the one-page strategic plan, because they coexist perfectly together. Is it sets that out for you. So
one of the exercises that I used to do that I've sort of resurrected this year is to ask myself the question, in the light of that one-page strategic or one-page personal plan, what do I want to have? What do I want to do, and who do I want to be? So ask those 3 questions in those 4 categories of achievements, rituals, wealth, and relationships on the one-page personal plan. In each of those categories, what do I want to have? What do I want to do? Who do I want to be? Those are pretty incredible to just sit there and brainstorm and list those out, especially that what do I want to be part. Who do I want to be? What does that look like with family, with wealth, with achievements, etc.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I wrote those down. Thanks, Jennifer.
I can send you an old worksheet.
Please do. And on that note, a lot of what we talk about is the whole concept of get 1% better every day, and using both the one-page strategic plan to do that as inside the context of the organization, and then what we do on the one-page personal plan for ourselves. So what are some examples? How have you seen people that you've coached, or maybe even you've done this yourself? What are some examples of that 1% better every day that you could share with people listening? Jennifer?
Ladies first.
Thank you so much. For me, you guys know that I am like Miss Detail oriented. I love making a plan. I love a checklist. And so for me, it's taking the big overarching, like maybe scary thing from the year and really drilling down into what my plan is on a daily and weekly basis. One of the things that I work on is from Andy's Boundless Self workshop is, and look, I'm confessing here, so hopefully he's not watching this. He loves to write these things down. And I don't, that doesn't do it for me. I have to have it electronic. So I'm confessing, everyone will know at Petra Academy that I'm not showing up on my calendar. Okay. I have 2 apps that I use that help me do this 1% better every day. And one of them is called Productive and one is Happy Feed. And so Happy Feed is a gratitude app where every day it prompts me at the end of, you can set the time that you want to prompt it. And if I don't do it the first time, there's a second prompt set up around 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. at night after I've, been able to relax and digest the day. I write 3 pieces of gratitude. And then the other thing is that Productive app. Have I done the things that I need to do to be my best self? And part of that is creating new habits. And so those habits drill down from the one-page personal plan and the work that I've done to better myself as a coach and as a professional. Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Professional.
It's all little stuff. I pulled out and actually did the math on this. If you take a 1% compounded over 365 days, 1% improvement, it actually leads to, it's over 2,600% better just in 1 year. So it's interesting that when you see that those little impacts carrying over and what it can lead to. Mark, what about you?
You know, you asked what are 1% things, right? What are ways to do that? Like, one of the things that is understanding the concept is really important, right? It's the little things that do matter, right? And one thing that I know we do it as part of our, you know, again, you know, Jennifer, you're so right. As an organization, we do the dog food of how we do our, you know, within Petra, we do our daily huddles with as an organization. But, you know, for me personally, and kind of as I look at things, how do I get 1% better, is every day I'm making a commitment. What's one thing I can do today to move myself forward? It may be something around, you know, being a better dad. It may be something around, you know, learning a new skill that I haven't had for myself, whatever that may be. It may just be reading, right? It's like, okay, you know, what's one thing I'm going to do? I'm going to read an article, you know, in a magazine that I've never read before, or is counter to what my thinking is right now, so I can see a different perspective. It's doing those little commitments each day for myself that, you know, are little 1%er things. And, you know, if you can do that each day, right? And you know, it does take discipline. It takes a change, Jennifer. It's a lot easier just to jump out of bed and go start reading email and get on Facebook and do all these other things. You know, if you can take a moment, either in the beginning of the day or maybe at the end of the day, and, you know, and plan for the next day of, okay, what's one thing I want to do tomorrow, or one thing I want to do today, and really put thought into it, not just a fleeting, you know, this or that. It's like, you know, what is it? And yeah, you know, writing it down makes a big difference. Right? You get kind of emotionally connected if you both think it and write it down, and you want to go farther, share it with somebody else. This is what I'm going to do today, right? Tell your best friend, your spouse, you know, tell somebody so that they can say, wow, how'd you do? Not to grade you, but to encourage you.
Yeah.
You know, that was a cool little thing you said you were going to do. You know, what did you learn from that article, Mark, that was in the Counter magazine that you don't usually read? You know, what perspective did you gain? Doesn't have to take much, and, you know, a little bit each day makes us better.
Yeah, it really does. I think the biggest thing I have observed this year, and really in the observation has changed my perspective on the subject of accountability. And I remember I had this kind of paradigm shift experience with it this year, where I thought, you know, that all along that you know, we want to be accountable. We, you know, the companies and our peers ask us to be accountable to them. And I can't remember where it was, but this thought came in. Maybe it was one of our workshops, but that no, what the real idea of accountability is we have to demonstrate accountability. No one can ask us to be accountable. You have to make the effort of being accountable and asking others to hold you accountable, because no one can demand it. You have to demonstrate it. And in doing so, I've seen the power of that impact my own life and the people that I've coached, and really asking those folks to be out there and to want accountability more so in their lives. So the little things like, you know, one little point of improvement and having a texting buddy. And when you got it done, you just text them, did it. That's all you have to say. You know, or some other thing of just having that person, because the one person we let down more in this world more than anybody is who? Ourselves. You tell somebody you're going to go do something, more often than likely you're going to get it done. And so to me, that's been the big aha this year, is just a shift in my own mindset around the concept of accountability, and using that power of demonstrating accountability to help my 1% improvement every day. And it doesn't matter what, it's like muscle memory. You have to flex it, and you get better and better and better at it over time.
Well, and you know, one of the things, Chip, this has been I've talked about this for a long time, and both of you may have heard it, but hey, let's throw it out there for people that may be watching. And, you know, please, folks, if anybody's on here, you have a question, throw it in the chat or on Facebook Live. We have people watching there too. Feel free to ask us questions. We're happy to answer your questions instead of just talking with each other. But one thing that really a long time ago struck me that it was not useful is the idea of making accountability, a stick type thing, right? Which is accountability being, hey, Chip, why didn't you get that done? You're not good enough. Come on, do better. That is like a crash course diet. It never works. It never sticks. You can get some results in the short term. It just doesn't work. None of us has ever had a situation where we were beat into submission of an accountability and we liked it and we thought, oh, great, I really feel like I achieved a lot. And I've been working hard for a long time, even longer than I've been here at Petra, but in communicating that accountability is an amazingly wonderful and powerful support mechanism to people. The way it has to happen, though, is I have to come up with a thing that I want to be held accountable to and why it matters. Jennifer, you said it earlier. Emotionally, what is this? It isn't just losing weight, right? If I just say, hey, I want to lose weight, that's a what. But why, Mark, do you want to lose weight? And I have to spend the time and really get good with it. And then I have to have a group of people who I trust. It could be one person. It could be my wife. It could be, your texting buddy, as you mentioned, Chip. But then saying, you know what, I want support from others so that I can be the best version of me. And this is why it matters to me, right? Kind of steal from Andy's and his. But, if I want to lose weight because, I want to make sure I can walk my daughter down the aisle, right? That's a big deal. And if I tell the two of you that, hey, you know what, I want to make sure that I'm the healthiest I can be so I can walk my daughter down the aisle. When she gets married, well, now as I go to grab that bite of chocolate cake, I might not have 2 bites. I might have just 1. I might not eat the whole quart of ice cream, but then I can tell you, and you two can also say, hey, Mark, how's it going? I know how important that is to you, to be in your daughter's life. And I want to support you. And what can we do, right? And, it's those types of ways of creating accountability that matter, where I said the why, not just the what. And then I find people who will support me in a way. And yeah, sometimes you might kick me in the butt and say, hey, we were with you over the weekend and we saw you have 2 pieces of pizza, right? Let's get on that treadmill or whatever it is. A swift kick from your friends every once in a while isn't bad either, but it can't be all the time. Accountability can't be this negative.
Mark.
Okay, well.
I get it with the ice cream.
The point being is that to be able to hold someone accountable, you have to build that relationship first. It can't just be the tisk, you got to go do this. When we build that relationship, it's easier to hold people accountable because we care and they know that we truly, genuinely want to see them succeed. And, that way too, when you do have to kind of go, hey, I saw you eat those 2 pieces of cake or those 2 pieces of pizza and you swore you weren't going to do that this week. It makes it, you can still jab and have some fun with it, but it makes it not so maybe harsh feeling because the sentiment is there of the genuine nature of wanting somebody to reach their goals and to succeed in what they've put out there into the world to go do.
It's all about the intent behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Intent drives.
Well, and
everything.
it's also, it does. And it's also quite frankly, the tisk approach is just easier. Right. And what I mean by that is it's easier if I'm on the outside to just say, okay, tell me what the number is, Jennifer. I'm going to ask whether you did or not. That's just easier. When you think about this, not only, we're interweaving personal and business stuff here, but as a leader, as a friend, it's easier to say, what's your number, Jennifer or Chip, right? And did you hit it or not? Okay, I'm on to my stuff. Versus, a good leadership is about saying, I'm going to put the effort in, right? To understand why, so that I can help support you rather than tisk. Or as a good friend, if I am a friend and that's what I'm doing, then I want to help you so that, I can be supportive, but that takes time and effort and understanding and really hearing the why. And, it's more work.
Mm-hmm. And so much more rewarding.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what's so cool about right now in the Petra world is that we're coming to the end of the year, and at the beginning of every year, we do the Wheel of Life with all of our members. And part of that process is having them write down their personal BHAG for 2020. And many people put December 31st as their date. Some people did earlier, but as those, we collect those in a planning day in Q1 or at the end of the year for the next year, and we mail it to them right before the deadline that they wrote on when I want to have accomplished this by. And what's happening is I'm starting to get text messages and emails with pictures of that card going, oh my gosh, you guys like actually sent this out to me. And I need to get my butt in gear and get this done, or I've already accomplished it. And this is what the impact it was on me or my family or my business or whatever it is. And that is so rewarding as somebody who's holding someone accountable. You know, accountability doesn't have to be a consequence. It can be a huge reward.
Yeah, we heard over the weekend. We had that on Saturday. Remember, was Eric from Pouring with Heart, right? He got his in the mail, and he's like, "Yeah, I wanted to write my book," and he has written the book. He held the book up, and he's like, "Yeah, I got this card," and I was like, "Yeah, I did it." He was all super excited. He's like that. I was, and it's like, yeah, so kind of fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
It reminds me of that thought that I can't remember when he said it, but I've got it up here on my wall. The idea around, and before I coached and was exposed to all these things, we thought that the ideas were everything. Like the idea person was the hero, but this idea of the concept of your ideas being welcome and your execution being celebrated inside of a company is such a mindset shift, but it's so important. And it's a cornerstone idea of what we teach, but it does come back full circle to this stuff we're talking about now of going and achieving things, because too often we don't determine what our true outcome is. And therefore we have nothing to celebrate other than the fact that we're staying the course.
Mm-hmm. So true.
So did you guys have any questions? You writing questions down, things you wanted to cover today?
Everything that I wrote down, we've covered. We've covered a lot of ground. We've kind of been all over the place when it comes to from goal setting, from professional all the way to personal, the outcomes of it, the importance of it. For me, this conversation has really been about building relationships and connections. And I think that's going to be a key part in the success as humans, as a human race, as business owners, as leaders of teams. The connections we make and we're able to build in 2021 is what's going to be the undercurrent of success for next year as we come out of this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because I think it's the thing that most people are starving for right now. Mm-hmm. Is just human connection. And I had this come up in a planning last week with one of my members about, there were some morale issues going on inside the company. And I'm like, well, is everybody's camera on? And they said, no. I'm like, let's start there, right? New rule, no cameras are off. Doesn't matter if you're in your PJs, your hair's not fixed, your face is not on, or whatever, didn't comb your hair, or whatever. Cameras on, because it's too important. This is the best we can do in most instances right now, is have that have just seeing the faces, right? And maybe that's a good thing to close on. What's the big thing? Like what is the thing you're long on for 2021? What's the thing, your big prediction going into next year, Jennifer?
Hey Chip, real quick before you move on, we got a question. It said, how do you tell people that, talking about turning your camera on? Do you think there needs to be a strategy or blunt tell them turn your camera on? We had a member ask this.
Anybody want to tackle that one? Jennifer?
Yeah.
Jennifer. Well, I think the reality is this is much like any other thing in leadership, right? Which is you have to do it in a way that fits your style. Mm-hmm. Some people are going to do it through an encouraging mechanism, right? It's like, hey, this is important to us, and we want to see each other's faces. We're team members and human beings. Let's get human and get on here. And then other people, their approach is like, hey, this is our style. This is what we're going to do, and gosh darn it, if you're going to be on here, you're on, or you're not on here. I don't think there's a perfect one way. I think the best way is to, understand that the goal and objective is met, and how you get and encourage people to do that, you have to do it in your own way.
Yeah. Anything to add, Jennifer?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's really just about setting expectations. I mean, if you were used to coming into an office and you got dressed and and you came into an office, then the same exists for Zoom and in a virtual setting. I might have yoga pants and slippers on underneath, like below the camera, but I'm still showing up for my team. And if I'm not externally facing, it's just, we bring our whole selves to work. And sometimes that means a top knot and no makeup. And the team just might have to get over it with the cameras on,
Right. And I think the thing is most often we tell people what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and we fail to ask and address why. Mm-hmm. And I think in the instance here, letting the team know why it's important we need to see each other because of the stuff we're dealing with now, the psychological effect of that we need to mimic as best we can, the human interaction experience. And the only way we can simulate that right now is on camera. And we need to see how people are doing. We need to see their faces and read their body language and so on and so forth. So I think it's, don't forget the why.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Chip, which is, the why is really important. Again, it goes back to that tisk, right? If you just make people do it because you're the boss, you are not going to get the results, right? So you can tell them and mandate it, but when you get down to it, and you can even, again, it goes to being human as a leader and saying, hey, you know what? I miss you guys. And this is an opportunity for us to see each other and to see the light in your eyes. And, it doesn't really matter. We don't really care what your background is as much as we care that you're here. And, it can be from you as a leader. It can be from, you can say, hey, other people on the team have said they'd like to do this. And here's, setting the expectation. Here's what we're going to do and why. And then making that happen and being a leader in it, showing up, and even making fun of it sometimes of, I got my bunny slippers on and showing or whatever, just to say, hey, this is okay. We just want to see each other, So and I think also, as you talk about kind of a closing as we wrap up here, I think we all have to remember too, is that a beautiful thing of this pandemic is that it's giving us an opportunity to rewrite the script. Right. And what I mean by that is the things that we're doing now, people are really open. It's like, okay, this is a new way. We've gotten into lots of old habits that we're just kind of doing the do all the time. And now this is, shaking things up a lot. And there's an opportunity, and people are teams. And when I say teams, it's not just employees, it's our vendors, it's our customers. Everybody's open to possibilities. And so I look at that as I come into 2021 and with my members of what are the possibilities, and let's go and explore some of those and be open to it. And even saying, hey, you know what? Don't necessarily know how this is going to turn out, but we got a blank sheet of paper now. It's different. We're doing more of the Zoom thing, not as much. So how can we have fun with that? Right. And you know what? Yeah, we're going to fall down a few times along the way and we'll laugh at that as well. But here we go. I think as I come into 2021, that's what I see is that, opportunity with understanding, right? But opportunity to rewrite our scripts.
Yep. So what's your closing thought there, Jennifer?
Yeah, I think this, to piggyback on what Mark just said, is people, I think right now are used to change, and maybe we're not as easily rocked when something changes, and that it opens the door for growth and for rewriting the script. I think too, it offers hope in a way. What we're going to see, I think, in 2021 is a lot of really creative thinking, new ways of doing things, new inventions, newness. And to me, that's what it's all about when it comes to New Year planning and feeling all the warm and fuzzies of a new year. It's a fresh start. And I think that's what 2021 can be as a theme.
Yeah, and I would say I would piggyback on that as well. If you go back and look at other points in history, and you kind of overlay those timelines of where they are and whether it was pandemic or social issues or financial issues, downturns, or all this kind of stuff, there always is a bounce back, right? And there's always innovation very, very close to the tail end of whatever those points in time were. Massive innovation, because it does cause you to think differently about the things at hand. And to me, that is the opportunity in 2021, is that you can go do everything you want to do. You can go become who you want to become. You just have to approach it differently. And so on that note, I think we're done for 2020. This will be our last Coaches Corner. We'll be back
That's
in the
our
new
last
year.
one.
Maybe a little bit differently, but so thanks for tuning in, and good luck, and have a great holiday season, and Happy New Year, everyone.